will be given after a gala performance. I'll try to be as brief as possible to make sure we are going home with something that we can use next year to prepare. We would first like to say that we watched a very beautiful festival with a lot of talent. And we appreciate that, and we thank you so much for the production. And indeed, as the bench of adjudication, we are convinced that we were watching material that is meant for a national stage. I will quickly run through this so that the anxiety, the stomach is not tortured. For the modern dance, some of these things you have heard before. So directors, I am directly talking to you. What is your story? What message do you want to pass across? You have to pass that message through dance. Quite a number of the items, although good, quite a number of times in between, there's a lot more drama than dancing. I would like you to watch the team that is going to the gala. A simple story for the child that the child can relate with, and it is danced throughout the dance. You can see dancers throughout, not actors at one particular point. On the point of the story, I think I will emphasize that when I come to the play. Music. There's an award we have here that was meant for the best composed music. Ladies and gentlemen, that trophy is going back to the store. We are getting into CBC. Take those children to the studio, compose your own music. We are mutilating musicians' property into those little bits, and then we screech and scream that we have a piece. Compose your own music to work for you because you are composing your own story. So that trophy, ladies and gentlemen, our hands were tied by you. We could not give it to anyone. There was no best composed music for the modern dance. We are encouraging you. We are in CBC. Let the children see the studios. Let them know that they can compose, and you'll get a surprise. I think we watched one film from State House Girls, where the girls actually recorded in a studio and actually came back to school. And they're doing better than the musician. You listen to that music, and you have no doubt those students are equal to what we have in the industry. The solo dance, this is the first time, ladies and gentlemen, the standards were very low. We have more or less the same perception here as a bench. Who is dancing? For one person to dance out a story is not easy, and maybe that is why it was a task. Now, I'm emphasizing this again when I come to the play. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a primary school festival, not secondary school. We want to see the child dancing out the story. 3 or 4 cases, we had a story that stretched up to graduation. One went even up to marriage. Is that still a children's story? When the person graduates at the university, please stay within your bounds. It's a primary school festival. Please stay there and do not traverse into areas that are meant for the other categories. I'm through with that. I'm going quickly to the solo verse, which I would like to treat together with the choral verse. I'll repeat, it is a children's festival. So one of our tasks was to find out whether the poem that is chosen allows the child to be a child. Sometimes we get very enthusiastic as teachers, and they say, "Tunaenda na show, let's," and you give the child a poem that is beyond the child. So when the child comes on stage, What we are looking at is a child that is struggling seriously to meet the expectation of the director who told the child, tunaenda Embu and we want to come back with the trophy. We were looking at that choice. How relevant is that thing to the child? And like I said the other day when we were giving the results for the preschool, when you have these items, ladies and gentlemen, do you ever take them to the children to watch? And if children don't love what you put on stage, then know you've missed it. The children must be able to show you that before you come to the national stage. So take your item to even other schools, and let them watch, see the reaction of the children. Quite a number of what we watched here were really stiff stuff. So stiff that you could even feel the audience was a little tense because it was not to the level of the children. Motivated movements. I know these are primary schools and they are preparing, these children are preparing to go to secondary school. However, when we have a choral verse, is there a movement that is motivated? Why is a character moving from point A to point B? And I'll come back to this when we are talking about the play. When I was talking to the preschool teachers, I mentioned something, and I would like you to take this very seriously. This is not a rule by me. This is how theater works. That if you are on stage, you have been given that space. Character-wise, a character will normally go close to what they love. And I gave an example, that where you are seated right now, you are seated next to a person you like. If you don't like something, you stay away from it. Now, I'm not saying that these teachers hate those teachers, but the idea is distance has meaning in theater. There is no way I'll stand next to something I hate and we are in harmony. If it's something I hate and I go next to it, I am going to destroy it, or I'm going to quarrel with it. We will get more of that in a future workshop, hopefully. The use of props. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we are giving the carpenters something to eat to take home. And we also have, the people with lorries to help us carry those big pieces of wood. Now, after we have announced the results, now you also have another task to carry the very heavy pieces of wood. Where? Home. Who was using those pieces of wood? Some very tiny characters who were here. And when you give them such big pieces of wood, and like I told the preschool team and the lower primary team, this idea of characters coming in front of the curtains to arrange pieces of wood for the children, with the t-shirts written the title of the school, or the title of the play, or whatever it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it is irrelevant. Let me emphasize. Why? I don't know whether most of you watch this. If you went next to the roundabout, there were some children playing next to the tree. And those children were putting their own props and they were talking and playing. Those of us who was out. I would like to see a situation where there is a very necessary prop, so necessary that the child cannot do without it, and it is heavy. So that I see somebody carrying it, but the child coming down and telling the person, not you arranging it for the child, and the child is mesmerized. Some children are even being told, it's so heavy. The play is supposed to be theirs. The verse is supposed to be theirs. Why are you telling them where to stand? And with CDC, we are training them to be future thespians. How will they be thespians if you're controlling everything about them? And yet you are telling us here that performance belongs to them. How? Please, let's give them the space they need. Let the children set that stage. This is a primary school festival, ladies and gentlemen. You have a team of characters, or even in the solo verse. What are the words of the verse saying? What is the face of the character saying? what is the body language of the character saying? All that in totality helps in communication before we even look at the costume. So please take note of that. There were a few lapses and we've written them in your comment sheets. I'm sure you'll be able to read that. Very quickly, I'll go to the cultural dances. And for the cultural dances, ladies and gentlemen, I'll combine that with the play. And allow me to say something here. There is a difference between a story and an event. When you read in a newspaper that there's a drama festival going on at Kimbo University, a few students thousands of students are gathered there, blah, blah, blah. That's what you read in the newspaper. That is an event. That is not a story. You are giving information, but it's information that is an end unto itself. It's information that ends there. In theater, you must be able to give us a conflict. Without a conflict, you have an event, you don't have a story. And an event can be anything. Unfortunately, we saw certain events on stage. Now, after saying that there's supposed to be a conflict, there is something we call the logical progression in a story. Ladies and gentlemen, these are not my rules. This is how theater works. I am telling you a story about a character who came from, and let me take an example of the majority of scripts in the dance. I have a character who is talented. There is somebody who is objecting to the character developing his or her talent. Good enough. That's a conflict. And then you want to tell me that that character who is preventing the child from developing got an accident. And then the child went and performed somewhere and got money to pay for the hospital fee of this character. An accident is an issue unto itself. Who caused that accident? We want to know. Why? How come he got the accident? That's another issue. So you can see there are several issues fighting for the same space. You only have a few minutes, 10 minutes to tell the story. You have brought in other issues. Another one, you're telling me that there's a character going to see the grandmother. And then there's a clash in terms of this one does not like eating the local food, and then the mother brings the pizza, and then the character is not fit enough to go and carry a pot. Eventually, the character does some exercises and then we celebrate. What are you telling us? Are you saying, this is what I'm saying, crowding the space with a lot of ideas? You've already told us there's a conflict between the traditional and the modern. Thank you. Deal with that. Don't bring any other issue. Because if you bring the issue of carrying the pot because they are unhealthy, we'll be asking how is that related to these two conflicts. And then you tell us the character did some exercises and then became fit. So what? That's the question you will ask. We have a story of a man who sells changa. And selling changa forces the child to do what? To take changa. And they become blind. They go to the hospital, they are treated, and the eye becomes okay. Interesting fantasy. And then we do a ramble for this old man to take the child to school so that what? So that the child can now be at school as a Gunyo Changa. Changa is a crime. How are you dealing with that issue? Who brewed that changa? Were they taken to court? That is an issue. Taking this character to hospital and then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking directly to those directors. You know whom we are talking about. We won't mention names. So when it comes to telling a story, and I would like you, ladies and gentlemen, to pick on one particular dance that will be at the gala. Simplicity of focusing on one particular thing and taking it to the end beautifully. You see, the danger of it is this. You are easily fooled by the audience. Because you have such a beautiful choreography, your children are dancing like the angels, and the instrumentalists are even making the Ajudicators feel like dancing. And then we scream for you, yeah! And then we say, ladies and gentlemen, we are in an act. This is an act. It is a skill. If you are going to tell a story, most of the teachers who have done literature, there is something we call narratology, the science of telling a story. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to perfect your dance, start from the story. By the time you are coming to costume, by the time you are coming to instrumentation, by the time you are coming to backdrop, there is a story you are dancing. But don't waste the children. Don't let them dance so beautifully, and yet they are dancing into a story that is eating into itself. Another issue that was very common, even in the plays, that a child is going for competition. The child is talented, so they are going for competition. So what? What is that competition about? Oh, they come back with a trophy. So what? How does that trophy help the child? Other than the ego, how does that relate to that particular talent? Again, the winning dance, it was not a competition. It was an extravaganza that gave the child money to do something else. So the competition should not be an end unto itself. I'll come back to the play, because in the play, some people are even telling us that you even go abroad. That this child is so talented that we will go abroad. What for? What for? We have very many miserable stories from people who are abroad. What is this child going into the play proper? Ladies and gentlemen, there was somebody who was telling me that in every festival nowadays, there's a chief guest called Right Reverend Pastor Otieno. If you watched everything that came here in terms of play, then you should not be a client of Pastor Otieno. You should be able to know that your level is at a particular stage. You will get to know where your weaknesses are. I have talked about the story. Ladies and gentlemen, there were only 5 plays of all the plays we had that address themselves logically to a progressive story with intestines, what we call the logical interconnections of how things progress. Now, I'm also going to talk to particular directors here. I'll repeat, ladies and gentlemen, this is a primary school festival. And there's a tendency, I want to call it bad manners for the lack of a better term. There's a tendency where the choral verse has invaded the play. If you want the children to perform a choral verse, please write a choral verse. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. Let me explain this to you. Because like I said, these are not my rules. Indeed, the kind of theater we have has a history that goes back to the Greeks. When the Greeks began theater was actually a song, a chorus. And then the first character stepped out of the chorus to act out what the chorus was singing or reciting. The person called Thespies, where we get the word thespian, a little history for our own sake. Very quickly, the second character stepped out. And very soon, the chorus was relegated behind the stage. And we started seeing interpersonal relationships. The moment I put 8 children here, and they all recite a line that was meant for one character. One character could have spoken those lines. What I have done in theater is this. I am telling my audience that this group of children speaking the same line that would have been spoken by one of them is a character. I have characterized the crowd. I have given the crowd a face and given the crowd a personality. As an adjudicator, when I sit there, I want to see how you develop that crowd, that character you call the crowd. But you notice that most of our plays, the children were speaking those lines, and very soon they are speaking other things. You can see the children, the crowd itself does not agree with itself. And then you're wondering, where is that personality we created? Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the world of make-believe. In the world of make-believe, there is no excuse at all that I'm going to create a character and I'm not going to allow that character to develop. Midway between in the play, the character has dispersed. We cannot see the character anymore. Why? Because you want your play to be powerful. And you tell the students, make sure you let it come with a bang. And these children, because they have been told they are, talking to the audience, there is no interpersonal relationships. Others are there, others are here. Instead of talking to each other, they are talking to the audience, the way the choral of us does. That affected 90% of all the plays. And ladies and gentlemen, we did not spare you. We are supposed to be giving the guidelines so that we do not go away from theater and create something that is not theater. And this habit of a character coming, you want to apologize to somebody. You burnt some child or you beat up a child for something. The man already finds out. Una shida fulani, kumbe I the adult was the wrong one. The child is behind you and you are apologizing to the audience. My son, pole sana. The son is behind you. Whom are you talking to? Is that a son of us? Interpersonal relationships. You come with an idea of a project. And in this project, you are talking about software, writing in software. For children, primary school. How do you break it down to the level of the child? It all comes back to, and then all the time, the children are trying to mock this. We are seeing the director on stage. It is the director talking. The child cannot relate to that thing. And that's why the children cannot even relate to themselves. Because if a child was supposed to talk to the other one, and you gave the directions, the child will be looking at the audience, speaking very big things. So choice of theme, that is what I want to talk about next. You want to talk about an aeroplane. You look at some of these plays, breaking that down to the level of the child. How do you do it? Why do you want the child to struggle seriously to fit a role that they cannot understand? Why? Because the director told them, well, sasa tunafanya hii na hii. Credibility. There are usually two terms we play about in the theater. There's credibility and possibility. Is it credible? Yes, it's credible. But is it possible? You remember the character who was taken to hospital and was blind. And the doctor only had to make one injection. I think they should meet this doctor. He will say so many things. Just one injection and the eyesight is back. Now, when you're talking about a situation like that, what is the reality that we know? Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. But is it credible? If those two don't tally, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to confuse your audience. So do not overstretch the imagination without a credible way of taking us that direction. Because children are the ones watching here. So that is extremely important too. We checked on that, and again, ladies and gentlemen, we did not spare you. Why? The competition was high. Language. Choice of language. We are dealing with primary school children. As the children are speaking on stage, do I see a child or do I see an adult? We have several cases of children who are speaking lines that honestly I am sure they did not understand. And if they did, the children in the audience did not understand. Checking on the language. Again, we talked about the set. I won't go back to that. And then maybe also the music and sound effects. Quite a number of plays were affected by that. Music and sound effects. How do you use the music? There is a kind of music we use in film, what we call the massive score. Now the massive score is that big band that plays when an army is going towards another army. You know, those of us who have watched Lord of the Rings, when the big army is going, is that what we call the massive score. That is what is playing there, and what we see on stage, one little child is sneaking. And then the massive score is playing. What is the interrelationship of the chosen music and what we are saying on stage? Ladies and gentlemen, we did not spare you. And the other issue we saw with the music, a beautiful line is being rendered. Children are performing really well. I don't know whether it was a problem with our music system or it was a problem with the person handling it. You hear the music coming out, boom, until you look behind, interrupting a beautiful moment on stage. The handling of the music, ladies and gentlemen, was not well done. And I'm talking about some of the very well made plays. Blocking. I'm going to emphasize this blocking because it's another piece of bad manners we have acquired in theater that does not make sense at all. We have a crowd of children on stage. I don't know where this bad manners came from. And all of a sudden, without a reason, they change position. Another one comes here, the other one goes there, and they are listening to the same person. The topic is still the same. Why have that changed? That was very common in most of our plays. And like I told you, proximity, distance speaks in theater. So if you had a case like that, ladies and gentlemen, we took note of it. I would like to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, so that we go to the next stage. The type of conflicts that we have. You have a conflict of children or people who are opposing something. Our interest in that conflict, and perhaps directors, please take note of this. When you are scripting, for instance, we look at this hall, it is full of people, children and others. The moment I pick one of them and put that one in my play, I am telling you as an audience that there are so many human beings on earth, but I want you to concentrate on this particular human being. There's a reason why you are picking that particular character. And so it's very important for you to give us a reason why you have picked that character and not any other character. And that's why, when it comes to scripting, ladies and gentlemen, you will need to take seriously, and we saw this in many of the plays, where you do not give us a very good reason why you are picking a particular character for a particular reason. So that we have the principal characters and the support characters and the antagonists all playing towards the same purpose. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you allow me, I'm very sorry for having hurt your feelings, but I know Mr. Butua is around. We do hope that next year we will be able to take care of some of these things. And if you don't pay attention to what we are telling you right now, prepare for hosting Mr. Butua again next year. Thank you very much.